question is so nice because I remember when I was little and my dad is a doctor, and he said, you know, when I studied, we didn't know that the DNA existed. What was the DNA? And I said, like, how is this possible? How can my dad, that is like the best of the world, doesn't know, or when he studied didn't know about DNA? And that now I think that DNA is the most important and the tool that we're going to be using for the future of medicine. So that was kind of like the first thing that shocked me. And I think I've been I don't know for what reason, but I've been obsessed with with cancer since I was very little. And I think that because it was the most complex illness that affected DNA. And because I thought the DNA was new, and it was like what differentiated me from my dad, because he was like the old stuff and I was like the new generation. I remember that I was really young, probably like 12 or so, and my dad said, oh, so what do you want for your birthday? And I said, like, a subscription to Nature and Science. And you know what? They did it. They gave it to me, and I didn't understand a word of it. I was so frustrated. I said, this is science? I can't understand anything. I mean, it's written in a language that I cannot even, like, it must be for smart people. I tried to read everything I could, and then, yeah, to just admire people that, it was so funny. In the lab, the first lab I went to, I was like, have you heard of the word PCR? I was like, and it's a polymerase chain reaction. It's what amplifies DNA, which is actually the tool for molecular biology. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do a PCR. Learning about DNA, molecular biology, that was kind of like the new thing. I guess that my brother is a telecom engineer, and he was the same with computers. He was like, oh, I just want to be with computers, and I wanted to be with molecular biology and DNA. So it's just how you, I don't know why. I think that my mother was a very practical teacher, and she was like, I don't know, you know, these things are not going to give. Why don't you study just a plain medicine and become a doctor, and that's it. The second thing that I think was important in my life and who made me be like I am now is that I was raised in Spain, in a very little village, and I didn't know any entrepreneur, any. I think that the only entrepreneurs, so usually people were raised to do professions, and the smartest one were professions. Like my dad was a doctor, my mom was a teacher, they were professions. The only entrepreneurs were, I think, I don't know any when I was raised. And then when I, went to university, I still couldn't find an entrepreneur. And you know, people were having professions or were having a really good career to work for a certain bank, or, you know, it was all services, but no one created anything. And so I couldn't fit anywhere because I was always trying to do things different, and I couldn't think of what I wanted to be in the future. And that was a real problem. So I met Martin Varsavsky, he's the first entrepreneur I met. And I was already 27, I think. And Martin is a serial entrepreneur. He had built multiple companies. He was Argentinian, and he was teaching at the school that I was attending to. And suddenly I said, that's it. That's what I am. I found it. I was so happy. I finally found someone that was a creator. And then I felt happy because then I said, okay, now I like DNA, and I'm an entrepreneur. I've made it. Now I can define myself. Otherwise, I couldn't. So I think those are the two things. So I had this amazing knowledge of molecular biology. And then I went to the pharma company, and I realized that what we were giving to patients was the classical stuff, Second World War. And I was like, how is this possible? I mean, all these that we know, and these guys are just like, and I was pretending that was like, of course, I was in the pharma, and this is super cool. It's like the biggest innovation. And I was thinking inside like this guy. And so at that moment, I had an idea, and it was very influenced by my personality and the fact that I keep talking to a lot of people, and I had all my contacts from my postdoc, and at that moment, I said, I just cannot work for pharma anymore. And I think that there is this possibility that we should be able to, instead of thinking of the drugs that we are creating, think of making these drugs go directly to the tumor instead of thinking of the object. That was an idea inside of my head. And then I just, I've been also very, very fascinated with viruses all my life. And in part of my postdoc, I was working with viruses. So when I left Lilly, actually, I decided, this is not for me. And I was consulting and talking to people. And there was this scientist in Heidelberg that actually later received the Nobel Prize. And he was the main virologist in the world. It was amazing, Harald Zurhausen. He had discovered HPV, and I was fascinated by him. I said, like, wow, when this guy started, like my dad didn't know about DNA. How could you imagine that a virus could create a tumor? It was like so I said, like, what if we use a virus that we know that goes to the tumor to deliver a drug? And that was kind of the idea that I was like, of course, it's such a good idea. Why is no one doing it? So I spent like days and days looking at it, like obsessed. And I had two little boys working around and saying, Mommy, Mommy. And I was like, stop. I have to think about viruses and drugs. Stop. And I couldn't sleep. I was like, and I looked at patterns. I thought like, it's not possible. I mean, someone must have tried and failed. Then that's why it's not out there. So I looked at patterns, and then I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna go to Germany and speak with Harald and see what he thinks of this, and maybe he will. So I went there, and Harald was just like, that's a great idea, and I've always wanted to do this, and we can do this with this virus and this other, and I thought, I'm going to start a company. I don't care. I might like stumble myself through the wall, but I think this is the coolest thing to try. And if I don't do it, I don't think anyone's going to do it. And I did it. Well, the truth is that you have it, I think, inside of you. Because when I finished my postdoc in London, I already wanted to start a company, which had nothing to do with this. And at that moment, I just couldn't convince anyone. And it was, I couldn't even find a technical partner. I had the idea, but so I think that I've always wanted to start a company, but it wasn't the right moment before. At this moment, I had been in academia. I had an MBA. I had worked for a big company. I had some contacts in the company, very limited because they were very local. But I felt so self-secure. And then it was a key thing, like my brother, who's very smart, he's the computer guy. He was doing his MBA at MIT at Sloan. And I talked to him and I said, like, listen, I'm desperate. I'm here with two babies. I have this crazy idea of using viruses to work with drugs. I've talked to a guy that they say is going to receive the Nobel Prize, but who knows? And I have, this development plan. I don't know what to do, and but I want to do it. And he said, you know what? Ask Mom to go home and take care of the boys, and you come here to Boston. And that's what I did. And so I left and I went to my brother's house, and I took a couple of programs at MIT, and then I saw the light. Then I said, these guys, they have it so easy, of course. And you hit a rock and there are two entrepreneurs here. And they failed and they start again, and no, doesn't matter. And I was just so excited because it was like, sometimes I tell people like, but what did you feel? Were you so brave to go there? And I was like, listen. Imagine that you are, a painter, but not a very good one, just a starter. But you're living in the 15th century and you hear someone talking about Florence and you say, oh, Florence, all the big painters, Leonardo, Michelangelo, they're all there and they are doing these amazing pieces of art. And you just want to go there. Of course you want to go there. And when you go there, you find other Nobel painters around that are trying and that are learning. And, it's just this it's just so attractive. It's very, very attractive. What I found in Boston was just so appealing that I couldn't let go. I couldn't. I think that if I had been born in Boston, surrounded by all these great startup opportunities, maybe I wouldn't have been like this. The fact that I was alone in a country that it's a beautiful country, but I had it much more difficult. So I had to be so much more passionate and committed to make it happen. I had to move a whole house, rent my house in Spain, move my kids, find schools. I did it because I was so passionate about it, and it was my moment. I said, like, if I don't do this, there's nothing in life that's easy. Nothing. So I think it's having it difficult that actually makes people fight more. I totally think of that. And then what you find here in the States is that actually people admire that bravery. They think that it's great what you've done, and they embrace it. And that's something very, very nice. So I think that's why entrepreneurs like me come to the States, because they find comfort in taking risks.